Good morning. Today we find Jacob on his way. He's cheated his brother out of the birthright. He's cheated his brother out of the blessing, and his brother has sworn vengeance. And Jacob's mother, Rebecca, just can't handle it, so she figures out a way for Jacob to be safe, send him to Laban's place. And so he leaves on his journey. It says it, verse 1, he came to the land of the people of the east. And the people of the east is, what the Arameans were called, the people that Jacob was looking for. And he sees this well in the field and 3 flocks of sheep lying there. And tells us because out of that well the sheep were watered, and there was a stone on the well's mouth that was large. And they wouldn't roll that stone away until all of the sheep were there so that they would all get watered. So, it makes me wonder, was there limited amount of water? Or was it so that, roving bands, other strangers, foreigners, outsiders wouldn't be able to get water? But it was protected water, protected by this large stone that was there. And Jacob talks to these people that are there and finds out where they're from. And he asks, do you know Laban, son of Nahor? Yes, we do. Well, and how's it going for him? It's going well. His daughter Rachel will be coming soon with the sheep. But they said it wasn't quite time for the water, I didn't understand. Look, it's broad daylight. It's not time for the animals to be gathered together, water the sheep, and go and pasture them. Why were there 3 flocks already there and Rachel going to be coming with another flock soon if it wasn't time to water them yet? But they're coming and they're gathering, and then they're going to go and graze. And as he says, they tell Jacob, we cannot move the stone until all the flocks are gathered. And then when the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well, we'll water the sheep. And then Rachel comes with her father's sheep. And he says, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the water's mouth, from the well's mouth. So the stone was heavy, needed a lot of people to roll it away, and Jacob does it by himself so that, he can water the flock of his mother's brother Laban, his uncle. And there's just, it makes me wonder what's going on. This stone in front of the well, it says he rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock. And, it makes me think about the angels rolling the stone, or, from Jesus' tomb, the women had wondered, well, who will roll the stone away? And God had taken care of that. So I would say here that God has taken care of it. He's watching out for Jacob. It says Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud and told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, that he was Rebekah's son. And, it says he kissed her. It, most likely wasn't it was a kiss of greeting. It wasn't a romantic kiss at that point in time anyway. And she runs then to tell her father. And Laban comes and embraces Jacob and kisses him and brings him to his house and tells Laban the story. And he says, surely you are flesh of my flesh. And then we get into this interesting story of Jacob working for Laban for 7 years for the hand of Rachel in marriage. And the 7 years is up, and the marriage is planned, and the bride comes, as tradition, veiled, And after the wedding, Jacob finds out that he's been cheated. He's been, Laban has deceitfully brought his first elder-born daughter, Leah, to the wedding. And Jacob was upset, rightfully so, but Jacob he's the cheater, he's the ankle grabber, he's the one who stole his brother's birthright and blessing, as I already mentioned. And so here the cheater gets cheated, and it's, we would call it as, karma. I've mentioned that, used that word not so long ago. So, So Jacob says, "What have you done? Didn't I serve you for Rachel? And why have you deceived me?" And well, it's tradition that the firstborn daughter, the elder daughter, must be married before the younger. And so Laban says, well, let's have the 7 days of this marriage feast, and then I will also give you my other daughter, Rachel, the one that you want for your wife. And so, 7 days later, then, there's another wedding. And Jacob works another 7 years after that to earn the hand of Rachel. So 14 years Jacob works for Laban to earn his daughters. But in all of this going on, Rachel isn't able to have children. But Leah, being the unloved one, has several sons. And, and Rachel was upset because she had no children, and she complains to Jacob, "Give me children before I know." And Jacob says, "Well, it's not my fault. I mean, that God has closed your womb." And this was a very common belief, that if a woman didn't have children, it was because God had closed their womb. And so then, to make things right, or even, or whatever, Rachel gives her maid to Jacob to be as a wife and to have children with. And sure enough, this maid has a son and another son. And then Leah sees that, she's no longer been having kids. So she gets a little bit of this jealousy coming up. And she gives her maid to Jacob. And her maid has a couple of sons. And, so we're getting, the 12 sons of Jacob here, the 7 tribes of Israel. And, this is, the story all plays out. And, but it's a messy one. Messy in so many ways. And finally, in verse 22 of chapter 30, God remembers Rachel. And he heeded her, and he opened her womb, and she bore a son and named him Joseph. And saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." And, so then after Joseph is born, Jacob comes to Laban, his uncle, and said, "It's time for me to be on my way and to make my own living. Give me my wives and my children and let me go." And, Laban understands. He says, "It's been revealed to me that much of my wealth is because of you. But name your wages and I'll give it." And so Jacob asks for all of the sheep who are speckle-faced or black-faced or any markings other than white on them, which, they needed to be pure white, no black or no markings on them. So Jacob asked for the less desirable, the undesirable of the flocks. But in the meantime, Laban is sneaky, and he goes through and he sorts all of them out, and he sends those 3 days' journey away with his other sons, so that there are none for Jacob to find to begin with. But Jacob, in verse 37, takes fresh rods of poplar and almond and plane and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the rods. And he set the rods that he had peeled by the water. And it was believed that the sheep mated by the water. When they were getting water, they would mate. And if the ewe saw something that was not, something that would be speckled that way, then her offspring would be speckled. And so this is why Joseph, kind of peeled this bark off of the, and peeled so that there was white streaks and dark brown of the bark and everything, so then the sheep that would be born would be speckle-faced and black-faced and, the undesirable ones, so that he would have many more. And then even worse, verse 41, when the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the rods in the troughs in front of them, but when the weaker ones were breeding, he didn't, So he was sorting out and picking the cream of the crop, even at that point in time. And It's just, the duplicity that goes on, and we know who Jacob is. I mean, who he becomes. He becomes Israel, the father of the 12 tribes. And a person that God uses in so many different ways. It's a lesson for us that God can use anybody and everybody, and God will, and to do that. And I look at Jacob, and I just have to kind of chuckle to myself because of the many things that he has done on his own, and he has done at the behest of his mother, and yet, God sees the good in him, and God sees the good in each of us as well. So may your day be blessed, and may you look for the good in others as well.